Good evening, beloved of the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our program tonight. Dumelang bagaetsho. Morena a le tlhogonolofatseng. Le perile bakaena, le perile. Chikwempu shimekatekisa goeie nand dierbare mense. Diere sieni fanand. Well, something that has gripped my heart over the years, that has worried me, and to a certain extent caused me to cry for this continent of Africa. Something is wrong with Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot agree with people who say it is over with South Africa. South Africa has to transform. South Africa has to change. And we have to be part of the change. Somebody sent me a video of what happened last weekend. One of the things that happened last weekend at the UN, United Nations headquarters in New York, when world leaders gathered together to make discussions, make decisions, have discussions and make decisions of what we will not talk about tonight. Maybe next week, but we'll not talk about that tonight. What were they talking about? But what surprised and gripped me was the report of what happened when leaders gathered there, how the leaders went there, and where the leaders were staying. We have to learn from the mistakes of others. And we also must have a desire to correct the mistakes. My prayer is that people who are with us tonight will be stirred when they see some mistakes made by some of our leaders and then decide, Lord, we are here for such a time as this. How can we contribute to bring change to Africa? When we are so wealthy as a continent, are we going to have skinny children, skinny, starving children, hungry children with flies all over their faces? Or are we going to change the picture? I have said to the Lord, I want to be one of those you will use to show the world African children who are healthy because they are well taken care of. But before we come to the story, that was just an appetizer. We are going to have my co-pilot to make his greeting today. This was my greeting, something heavy on my heart. So the DP, my co-pilot, is going to say his greetings, and then we are going to hear from you and welcome you as you tell us what you think about what is happening. And tonight, I'm going to request interaction more than at other times because we have questions and some of you have answers. We need answers. We must help Africa. What we are seeing today, nobody can convince me that it is God's will. The problem is at the top. But first, let's go through the Greek and I will tell you why we say the problem is at the top. Co-pilot, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, President, and thank you. I think on that introduction, very clearly, I think from my perspective, President, one only needs to look at our name, and our name is African Christian Democratic Party. And one of the reasons why God had given you that particular name is because of the vision also that God had given to you for the continent of Africa. And as the ACDP, we will be doing ourselves a disservice if we do not, and if we are not concerned about the affairs of the continent and on the continent. And so I think it's important that we have this focus, a focus on Africa, a focus on what is happening, and be keeping our eye on what is happening on the continent, because South Africa itself is found on the continent of South Africa. And if one looks at just some of what is happening in government in terms of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and the interconnectivity of South Africa with the rest of Africa, and going forward, the importance of the continent of Africa for the survival of South Africa. we would be doing ourselves an injustice, certainly, if there is no concern and keeping our eye on the continent, as well as praying for the continent, even as we do so for our country, South Africa. And so I just thought that it would be important that even as you've introduced this particular topic, President, that we understand why we do what we do as the ACDP, and why we also take a keen interest in what is taking place on the continent, and the importance for us to keep our eyes focused on the continent of Africa. And again, the ACDP is pivotal in the rejuvenation, the restoration, the revival, and the transformation that needs to come to the continent of Africa. That is why South Africa needs the ACDP. The ACDP needs you, and we all need the Lord. Bless you, sir.
Bless you, sir. Thank you so much for those wonderful words. South Africa needs the ACDP. We, people who are judging us based on the past elections, are making a huge mistake. Huge mistake. God is going to do a mighty thing in this country, and ACDP is going to be part of that. Now, having said that, we say welcome to everybody who has joined tonight. Before we come to the real issue about Africa and African leaders, what are you saying, our members? Can we see who is the first to send greetings? YouTube user. He says, "Dear President and DP, can we pray for Israel tonight as they are facing a war against Lebanon?" That's Rob Weedy from PE. We will definitely do that. Let's do the greetings. Palesa, go ahead, sir.
Palesa Yates, Dumalang, Mr. President, Mr. DP, and ACDP family. Dumalang, Palesa.
Bernard Nathhill, sorry. It is a very good evening to President Mishwe and Deputy Wayne Thring from Joanne and Bernard, Ward 36 and Durban North.
And Nora Mali says, "Good evening, Honorable President, Deputy President, and ACDP family. Great to be together again." Absolutely, Nora.
Moses Powe, "Good evening, Mr. President, DP, and ACDP family. Good evening, sir."
Raymond Eli, TD, "Good evening, Honorable President, co-pilot DP, and the ACDP family." Good evening, Raymond.
Jamil Isop, "Good evening, Honorable President, Deputy President, and ACDP family." Good evening, Jamil.
Karina Cronje Pater, "Good evening, President." Good evening, Karina.
Rodilov, "Good evening, President, DP, and ACDP family from a very cold October 2024 first day." Goeienaand, meneer Lof. Goeienaand.
Kiwi Fruit Maluleke, Riperile, Mr. President. Looking forward to another informative session with the ACDP family. Yes, Kiwi Fruit.
Joel Magula, "Warm greetings, Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President, and all ACDP family. Ntate Magula, dumelang."
Johan Dutoit, Councillor, "Good evening, Honorable President, Deputy President, and ACDP family." Good evening, Councillor.
Okay, that's all we have for you tonight. Now, there was a United Nations conference this past weekend in New York. Somebody sent me an observation they made from what they saw in the newspapers, reporters reporting about something that I think must have been concerning to them about the attitude of European leaders and African leaders. So we are going to read together. We are going to put what I'm reading on the screen because we need to come up with ideas, with a plan. We cannot go on like this. But what am I talking about? Let me start reading. Copied article from an observer about the opulence of African leaders versus financial prudence of leaders from the developed world. Eyewitness account, that's a quote, regarding the UN General Assembly in New York. African leaders are the richest in the world. Okay, let's say some of the richest in the world. They arrived at the UN in New York, each in a convoy of over 20 powerful vehicles hired from American car hire companies. I was shocked to see European leaders arriving for the UN General Assembly in small cars, and some arriving as a group of European leaders. The Prime Minister of the UK arrived in a small car with the Prime Minister of Norway, while the Prime Minister of Italy also arrived in a small car with the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, one of the wealthiest economies. The German Chancellor arrived in a Mercedes-Benz with the Prime Minister of Sweden and the Prime Minister of Denmark. The three of them slept at a budget hotel in Manhattan. African leaders took over very expensive hotels in Lower Manhattan, the headquarters of Wall Street, and the most expensive area in Manhattan. Each African leader is staying in a separate 5-star hotel with his delegation of politicians from his country. The African leaders plus their entourage are buying expensive items in New York. The Prime Minister of Israel is sleeping in a budget office far away in Queensboro of New York, while the Dutch Prime Minister is in the same budget hotel with the Prime Minister of Malta and President of the Czech Republic. The Prime Minister of Slovakia is sleeping in Harlem in New York, in a budget office together with leaders from Jordan. The most shocking part of it is that while African leaders took over at least 39 5-star hotels in New York, the same African leaders are engaging European leaders asking for help to increase financial support to respective African nations. I saw the German Chancellor looking at African leaders arriving in big motorcades in total disbelief. He was shocked, but still he went ahead to meet them. Maybe let's stop here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think something is not right. Many of these African leaders they are talking about with expensive cars, they forget when they go to the European leaders and countries to ask for money, what do these European leaders think? You are driving such a big, expensive car when your country is poor, your people don't have almost anything. A European leader, on the other hand, is buying a smaller budget car, and yet his people are not starving like Africans. Somebody has to help us. How can we change this? Because this must be changed. Why does Africa produce leaders that look at themselves before they think about people who are starving, who are suffering, who need jobs, who need assistance? Now, when you hear that a president of the country is the richest in his country, you know that something is wrong, hopelessly wrong. When African presidents are among the richest in the world, and yet their people remain poor, What are we going to do? Because this is not normal. And I say it must change. Some of them, obviously, when they hear this, if they hear this, they will not be happy. But it is wrong for African leaders to serve themselves while their own people are dying in poverty, starvation. All the money goes to us, goes to me. I am the leader. Ladies and gentlemen, something is seriously wrong. Now, I want to show you a short video. I want to combine the two. To see somebody, one can say he's among the exceptions on the continent. A person that shows commitment to his people. But before we show that, one question I want to ask. When you respond, say something about that also. These very leaders who has large entourages, even in driving around in the country, you hear sirens blasting. European leaders don't do that. What is the problem? Is that show off? Is that drawing attention to ourselves? Do we really need all these noisy alarms when presidents are on the road? The fact is, there is no sniper waiting for a president in every street corner. Actually, personally, I think it is safer for them to drive without these sirens, because nobody will even think, hey, the president is coming. But when they hear wing, those who are not even thinking of doing something, when they hear the president and they have ill motives, they want to do something wrong, then they come out. Because now they've been attracted by the sirens. Ladies and gentlemen, I said something has to happen. Okay, let's look at the video. And then after that video, we are going to open a discussion. We cannot carry on like this. When African leaders are competing about who is the wealthiest, while our people are crying and dying because of starvation, joblessness, money that can be invested and be used to help people, to buy ambulances, to buy even police vans. You want the police to attend to a case. You are told there is no van. Okay? People want ambulances. There is no ambulance. A fire is taking place somewhere, a house is burning, a building is on fire. There is no ambulance. Oh, sorry, there is no fire engine. The fire engine that is there maybe does not even have water. There's nowhere where they can find water. Now, I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, this is not on. This is not on. Something has to happen. All right, let's look at the leader of Burkina Faso. And then we'll take it from there. We're going to open the lines and then we are going to talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Intervlog. I say this is Intervlog, and I am here once more. I am here because there is one important information that I brought to you today, and this information is unbelievable. The information is something every African leader should adopt. And you would ask me, what is that information? Well, the information is coming from Burkina Faso, and it is about the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré. Yesterday, being 25th of July, 2024, handed over mobile clinics, vehicles, and equipment. This means mobile hospitals. In order to explain it very well, is a vehicle being equipped with hospital equipment. Many, many things that can happen in hospital can actually happen in those vehicles. That is exactly what it is. And what is the reason of Burkina Faso leader handing over mobile vehicle to the Ministry of Health? The reason is actually the reason I'm here as well. One of the reasons is that since Ibrahim Traoré took over, things have progressed so rapidly that if you go to Burkina Faso, you won't recognize Burkina Faso anymore. There is development everywhere you go in Burkina Faso. Infrastructural development. And that development cannot get to every local government because there are some typical villages that problems still exist in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso leaders are building hospitals everywhere. But the point is that they cannot wait until hospitals are built everywhere before the Burkina Faso began to enjoy the effect of their good governance. So the leader happened to buy the mobile clinics and send them to different local governments. This mobile clinic is for checking of fever, malaria, cancers, pregnancy, test of different things, and also for the treatment and the solution. And this is beautiful. As you can see it, vehicles and machines are everywhere here in the field. That very day, Ibrahim Traoré came with a different vehicle from the one people used to know him with, which is Land Rover Defender 2001, meaning that Ibrahim Traoré has changed his vehicle. He is now using a different vehicle, and this vehicle is 2011 Toyota 70 Series. In secondhand, it cost $10,000. Now, what surprised people most is that when he came to commission the trucks and some SUV and pickups that Burkina Faso government procure for doctors and nurses, he came with 2011 Toyota 70 Series, which it cost us $10,000 in secondhand. And among of the vehicle he commissioned, we had Toyota Land Cruiser 2024, new ones. And he refused to use those Toyota Land Cruiser. Instead, he gave it to the doctors. He said doctors need it more than him because these doctors will be entering villages. Some of their service need speed. They go to need vehicle with his speed, like an ambulance. But he, as a president, this one is okay for him. He chose 2011 Toyota 70 Series, as you are seeing it here. He came down from the Toyota 70 Series to commission new vehicles for doctors. Each one of those vehicles he commissioned can buy 20 of the one he is using. Each one of any vehicle he commissioned today can buy 20 of the one that the president has. Is this not unbelievable? Improving healthcare provision, mobile clinics and cold chain equipment for quality care for Burkinabe, Ouagadougou, July 25, 2024. The president of Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, handed over this Thursday morning to the Ministry of Health and Public Hygiene 15 mobile clinics, cold chain equipment, office equipment, rolling logistics for the improvement of the provision of health care in our country. The 15 equipped mobile care units, mobile clinics, are intended for public health establishments, EPS. They are equipped with equipment for specialized care such as mammography, ultrasound, colonoscopy. These mobile clinics, a first major experiment by the Burkinabe government, will be deployed to villages, the countryside, and certain peripheral areas of cities to allow populations to have ultrasound scans, to do cervical cancer and breast cancer screenings, and to take charge of children's care. The objective is to bring care closer to the most vulnerable populations. These are mobile clinics that will be in all regions of Burkina Faso, and that is the vision, so be able to offer quality care to Burkinabe wherever they are, declared Captain Ibrahim Traoré. As for the second batch of materials and equipment handed over by the head of state, it consists of 12 station wagon vehicles, 11 pickup vehicles, 13 refrigerated pickup vehicles, 1,900 refrigerators with solar kits, 110 electric freezers, 14 generators, 11 cold rooms, and 835 tablets. These cold chain equipment and tablets will help ensure the quality of vaccines at all levels of the health system. We had difficulty in the Health and Social Promotion Centers, CSPS, in being able to preserve the vaccines. The vehicles must transport these vaccines to the solar refrigerators that will be placed in all the CSPS in Burkina Faso so that the vaccines can be preserved in order to effectively fight against certain diseases, rejoiced the president of Faso. The head of state took the opportunity in this period of malaria to invite the populations to be more responsible and to raise awareness. The fight against this disease begins with the destruction of breeding grounds. Today, everyone in their neighborhood must be able to do a minimum to clean up their living environment, said the president of Faso. For the Minister of Health and Public Hygiene, Dr. Robert Lucien Jean-Claude Cargogo. This is a great day for the health system. He expressed his gratitude to the president of FASO for this innovative and far-reaching government decision, and invited the population to use this equipment rationally, and for health providers to get involved so that all Burkinabe can have adequate care. All the equipment was acquired by the government with the support of its partners. Now, the major reason why I am here is not actually to show you what is going on, but for the leaders in Africa to learn. How many times have we seen African leaders doing what Ibrahim Traoré is doing here? Most of our African leaders have neglected healthcare to the extent that whenever they themselves are sick, they would travel abroad to receive treatment. And if you ask them, they say, because we don't have good hospitals in Africa. If you ask them, why didn't you build the hospital? Some of them will say they don't have money. But when you look through your window to check the type of vehicles they have, that these people have vehicles that cost more than $200,000. Go and check vehicles that president in Africa have. There is no president in Africa that does not have more than 4 Toyota Land Cruiser SUV. Some president has 15. President in West Africa has 40 SUV. That money, it can build any type of hospital. But the president never wanted to do that. Some of this president in Africa, they will come into power. Apart from the Toyota Land Cruiser, they will approve for themselves. They will still go and approve Toyota Land Cruiser for the lawmakers, senators, governors, local government chairmen. In some countries, the numbers exceed 1,000 pesos. Each one of these Toyota Land Cruisers costs $200,000. If you multiply $200,000 by the numbers they are using to buy the Toyota Land Cruiser, if you multiply 200,000 by 1,000 or 400 pieces, then you know how much your president is squandering for no reason. If your president has 10 Land Cruiser, escorting him, multiply that 10 Land Cruiser by $200,000. You know how much your president is squandering. Why didn't he use it to build a hospital? And one funny part is that when he, the president, has misused the money, used the money to buy a vehicle, refused to build hospital for the poor, and for him, the president, as well. When the president is sick, do you know what happens? He will fly abroad to treat himself, and when he gets better, he come back and be driving the Land Cruisers. What about the poor? When the poor are sick, can they travel abroad? This type of thing is actually called greed. A president that does not think about the health of the masses should not suppose to travel abroad to treat himself because we are all the same. You cannot use the money that belongs to the country to acquire Toyota Land Cruisers. You will be driving Toyota Land Cruiser. Your wife will be driving Toyota Land Cruiser. Your escort will be driving Toyota Land Cruiser. You will still go and approve Toyota Land Cruisers to lawmakers, to governors. And when you people are sick, either your wife, your son, your daughter, the lawmakers, when you are sick, you will travel abroad to treat yourself. What about the poor who are in the country? When they are sick, where do they go to? This is the reason I am applauding Ibrahim Traoré. This is the type of president you need in Africa. If you have a president that will be approving Toyota Land Cruiser SUV for everybody, and some of them are even approving for private jets, approving for everything, helicopters, and so on and so forth, and when they are sick, they will fly abroad to treat themselves. Don't vote for such president. Any president who don't think about our health, that president is not good for you. He is ruling you in order for you to take care of him. That is the reason he's there. If his leadership is for the masses, he would have done what Ibrahim Traoré did. Look at Ibrahim Traoré thinking about the children of Burkina Faso, thinking about the mothers with breast cancer, thinking about the people in the village who are having malaria and fever. Well, I stop here. Thank you very much for watching. This is the entire vlog.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, amazing. I'm sure you have an idea, or you know, you read, you heard, saw on the news, how much money is stolen by leaders in South Africa. In case somebody sense. If you buy 40 Land Cruisers with your own money, nothing wrong with that. We are not saying they should not buy, but to accumulate so much wealth, taxpayers' money, just to serve yourself is not correct. We are saying we need a shift in our thinking. Why are our people still following and applauding and electing such leaders? We need leaders like Tauri, who will say, if I need more, I have a salary, I will use my money to buy more, but I must first think about my own people, people who need hospitalization, do they have good hospitals? People who need clinics, are they well equipped? Do they have medication and so on? The focus now, we need to challenge South African politicians. We need to care for the poor. We need to care for people, all people, whatever background, we need to care for people. Now, we know that politicians are favored in many places, are protected. We have many politicians in South Africa and ministers who are protected, who committed crimes, who stole from government, sometimes money that was supposed to go to the poor, and they're not charged. Until today, they are not charged. We know even the president of South Africa had $4 million on his property. Until today, we are not told the truth. Until today, we are told no investigation. Let them find you with 50,000, only 20,000 in your possession. You'll be taken to whatever church office to be asked questions about where does this money come from. All right, let me not take all the time, and we need to hear from you. Those who say it's okay, let these African leaders live this way while our people are trying in their weaknesses, sins, and diseases. Okay, we support that. But those who say, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And if you say it's wrong, how must we change this? We must change this so that we start having leaders who love other people. Co-pilot, do you want to say something before we hear what our people are saying, sir? You are muted, sir. You are muted.
My apologies. Yeah, just maybe a few things, President, in about a minute or so. Am I audible now? Am I audible? President, are you able to hear me? I see your mic is muted on your side, sir. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right, great. Maybe just a few thoughts from my side, President. One is, I sit on the Trade and Industry Committee, and within the National Lotteries Department or Commission, almost 1 billion rand has been, close on to 1 billion rand has been stolen, fraudulently so, by officials within the lottery. And in our the report backs by the SIU last year, and it is now resurfaced again as the Hawks and that have reported to our committee. The sad thing is that to date, not a single individual, despite the fact of the evidence that has been found, not a single individual has been prosecuted. And I think that that's a challenge that we have in South Africa. You raised the issue of Phala Phala with our president. Under state capture, we've had close on to 1/5 of our, that's like 20% of our GDP. They say up to 1 trillion rand during state capture that was stolen, fraudulently taken by corrupt politicians and officials. How many of those politicians have been tried for their corruption? And so what we are seeing taking place in Africa is taking place also here in South Africa. And I think it's an indictment on the continent when we have leaders who have no heart for the poor. They say, President, that the DRC is the richest country in Africa, but sadly the poorest, if you look at how their population, because of the war. But we have cargo planes from first world countries flying in on runways that were built by these first world countries, taking out their gold, taking out their uranium, taking their diamonds and their precious minerals of the richest country on the continent being exploited. And so while we have African leaders who exploit, there are also those from the first world that do not want to see Africa, the continent of Africa, grow. And we as the ACDP want to see that changed. And so clearly, President, the only way that that's going to happen is when we have leaders who have servant hearts. So we have leaders who are compassionate and who know what it is to be a servant leader who serves on behalf of their king. And that is none other than Jesus. So that's our position. And we call on those who are listening to help the ACDP to make this a possibility in South Africa and even on the continent of Africa. Thank you, sir.
We need to challenge many of these Christians who are supporting thieves, who are doing research work for thieves. Rather than say these people are wasting resources, they are not helping our people. Why don't I look for people who want to help the people and we stand together so that poverty in South Africa can be eradicated? I believe with all my heart, poverty in South Africa can be eradicated if and the day we get leaders of integrity, leaders of righteousness, leaders of character, leaders who love their people, leaders of compassion, as you correctly said, DP. Now, friends, it is your opportunity. What are you saying? This must change. Who's the first to speak? We see Palesa Yates saying, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Raymond Laidi, okay, so you'll take over after this. Raymond Laidi says, African presidential benefits need to be cut down and their status to be reduced to servants of the people rather than be treated as celebrities and beneficiaries from the state resources. Drastic, deliberate transformation of this bad conduct must be done. We need leadership of integrity. Unless ACDP assume governance, change will not come. Mr. Laidi, you are the Speaker of the COP Geslan. Thank you so much.
Maxwell Mbu Ngewu says, there's so much work to be done in scaling down these privileges that make the leaders of the African states to flaunt riches at the expense of the poverty-stricken families. And again, so true, President. Much needs to be done in terms of scaling down, similar to what Raymond has indicated about benefits that need to be reduced for African leaders.
Yeah. Then Nora Mali says, what a good example of a leader who has a heart for the poor, not African leaders who aid selfishly, who are self-centered and heartless. We need leaders whose focus is the people they lead. Correct, Nora? Thank you for that.
Lysander Dobson says, it is a disgrace how Africa and the Republic of South Africa is being exploited. So true, Lysander.
You know, while we are being exploited, as the DP has said about these African leaders, European leaders who come with their private jets and land on the tarmacs that they have made so that they can come and loot and rape Africa of its minerals. While we frown at that, we need to get our house in order. We need to get our house in order. This past weekend, I was talking to some friends, including in the church, that we are called useless eaters. Some people are saying Africans are not contributing to the world economy. They are worthless eaters. So when they get rid of these many people who are just eating and sleeping and going to the bathroom only, 3 things they specialize with: eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom, calling them useless eaters. I'd say, rather than we fight, because when some people hear that, they say, these people, they want to fight. I said, no. We don't have to fight. Let's prove them wrong. When people say I am lazy, how do I prove them wrong? Rather than fight, they say they're accusing me of being lazy. How do I convince them that I'm not? I work harder and smarter. I show with what I do that I am not lazy. It's time for Africans to stand up and say, those who are saying we are useless eaters must eat their words. Some of you who do not know who has been saying that, the World Economic Forum leaders have been using that word a lot, useless eaters. So I'm saying I'm not a useless eater, and I pray that all ACDP members will say, I'm not a useless eater, I am a productive servant of the Lord. Productive servant of the Lord. And I will show with what I do that I'm productive. I can do something with my hands. God has promised to bless the work of our hands. It is time, African leaders, it is time, ACDP members, that we roll up our sleeves rather than complain. They're bad-mouthing us. Let's prove them wrong by doing the opposite of saying we are when we are not. Okay? Having said that, kiwi fruit, maluleke. Oh, South Africa will only eat the money as per usual. Our corruption is embarrassing, and sadly, the people are still suffering, yet they vote for them. People will suffer as long as the ungodly are still in power. We need godly government urgently. You are right, Mr. Maluleke, you're right.
Dr. Gabriella Lafoy says, what is even more sad about the corruption at the National Lotteries Board is the manner in which whistleblowers who expose the corruption have been treated. The corrupt are protected at all costs. President, this cannot happen and will not happen under the ACDP. We cannot allow for those, the whistleblowers and those who expose corruption, to become targets. And we have said within the ACDP, if you look at our policy, that we will ensure that whistleblowers are given the protection that they need. But this is certainly not happening under the current leadership of South Africa and the ANC. And hopefully, I'm not sure about the GNU.
It's the same bodies, okay? So when people are saying, government, the South African government, saying, come out, come and help government, give us information, expose these people, and these people know, who see what is happening, the whistleblowers, they know that they are going to become target. It's like going to a police station to report a crime that is committed by a person, and then the same corrupt policeman inform the culprit, hey, so-and-so was here complaining about you. Be careful, he's your enemy. So we are being betrayed even by the police. But ladies and gentlemen, this must change. If ACDP can say enough is enough, we're going to change this, we inform our people on the ground. We inform them and we show them facts. Let's stand up and rebuild South Africa so that South Africa will become a blessing to the African continent. All right. Mpiake Dlamini, he says, I'm a Christian farmer. I am a Christian former DA voter. After the elections, ACDP are the only ones who have stuck to principle. Very true, sir. We stick to principle. Even the fact that we did not join the GNU, even some of our members, unfortunately, did not understand. We said before the elections, what the DA and others were saying. Let us come together as opposition parties and remove the ANC from power. We said we cannot support the ANC. Let us all work together to remove the ANC from power. Today, the same DA who started the whole thing, the Moonshot Pact is forgotten. They are with the ANC. All right, we hear now they are negotiating in Tshwane. All right, DA and ANC negotiating. They want to work together. Nelson Mandela Bay, again, the DA has forgotten. I focus on the DA because they are the ones who are saying, let's not work with them. Let's find a way of removing them. Let's work together to remove them because of their corruption. But now they're encouraging their corruption. They're part of them. All right. But the South Africans will speak when the time is right. So, Mpiake, thank you very much for that.
And Thabiseng Sekano, all these benefits should be reviewed. The video is exemplary of a leader that has interest of his citizens at heart. 30 years into our democracy, we still have areas, particularly the rural, struggling with basic water and sanitation. Many public hospitals are in appalling conditions. Waiting periods at hospitals are long for blood tests, CT scans, etc., further delaying treatment to our families. And unfortunately, many of our leaders focus on self-serving interests. President, I could not have said that better myself. From Thabiseng Sekano, thank you so much. And it reminded me also of what Dr. Lefoy spoke about when she spoke about the fraud and the corruption and how whistleblowers are being targeted. Remember Babita Deokaran, the whistleblower of one of the hospitals in Gauteng, who was assassinated and taken out because she blew the whistle. And when she informed her superior that she felt threatened, no protection was given to her. And a few days later, she lost her life. But look at what happened, President, in Burkina Faso, how the leader Traoré was able to provide in a short space of time, how he was able to provide for his people. When you have a leader who has a heart for the nation, so much can be done when we do not have self-serving leaders who only have their own interests or their political party comrades and their own leaders' hearts at heart. But when you take the people, the heart of the people close to you, transformation can come.
You know, when I see what this Burkina Faso leader is doing, Traoré, I ask myself the question, after his presidency, will the incoming president continue with what he has been doing, the great work he has been doing, or will he go back to those bad manners of having a president that is self-serving? May the Lord bless him and keep him. We need more men like him on the African continent. True. 2011, I think we went to Rwanda. I raised this issue because they say he also encourages his people to look after their country. When we were there, the Saturday, we joined their cleaning campaign. The president of Rwanda, once a month, he's in the streets with his people cleaning. He's serving the country in a way that people say, we want this man. We want this man. He has been a president for many years. Western countries and nations, some of them were criticizing him, saying, does he want to be president for life? And yet it's the people. The last elections, they say 99% of the voters said, we want the incumbent. 99%. Why? Because of what the man is doing for these people. Obviously, he's not a perfect man. You are not perfect. I'm not perfect. We have our faults, our mistakes. He also has faults and mistakes. But what the man has done left an impression on me and the team that we're together there. Do you know that even the banks on the Saturday that is committed to work in communities, they open late. Even the banks open late, so that people in their areas, people in their communities can clean. In South Africa, it's like when you see an open space, it invites trash. Along the road. Sometimes you visit a place you visited before 2 weeks or a month before. Next time you go there, there is trash. There is litter. We have become a nation of litter bags. But now we are hearing and seeing people who are leading by example. I repeat, I'm praying that God will raise more leaders who care for their own, like this Ibrahim Traore. It can happen. If we believe and we pray, it can happen. And we prepare to be exemplary ourselves. Fold our sleeves and work to improve Africa. Africa must transform. Africa must be saved. We have been saying it. Some it's a theory. Africa will be saved. Ladies and gentlemen, this country must be saved by the grace of God. And with righteous leaders, it is possible. There's Geraldine, sir.
Geraldine Mari says, I am an educator and I'm saddened by leadership in the education sector in South Africa. The Minister of Education is saying there is no money to pay new educators and no money to feed poor children, but enough money for politicians to loot. And so there's a frustration and a tear in terms of that icon that she put on as well, sir.
Yeah. No, it's painful, sir. It's painful. Christian, it's a Councillor Chris Rolson. Can President Ramaphosa handle being driven around in a 2011 Toyota Cruiser? Good question. Good question. This president gives his doctors 2024 Land Cruisers. He drives the 2011. I applaud him. Setting a good example for Africa. Our leaders will not do that. Okay. Kino Peterson. If Ramaphosa listened to South Africans before forming government earlier this year and cut the size of cabinet through Kino or do away with deputies, there would be more resources for basic critical services. Very true, Kino. He didn't listen and he will not listen because he does not have a heart for the people. All right. Looks like we have exhausted what our members wanted to contribute. I trust that you are challenged. Africa must change. Our attitudes must change. And I want to appeal to people who look like me in skin color, that when we are criticized, look at how the country is. Rather than be angry, rather than want to fight, and say they're talking nonsense about us. Let us change. Let us do things and do our part to make sure that Africa improves, starting with South Africa. Stealing must stop. Looting must stop. Unrighteousness in government must stop. Lack of love for the people must stop. Self-caring of our leaders we have in South Africa and on the African continent, that must stop. It would be wonderful one day to hear a report that African leaders who went to America, to New York for another United Nations conference, general conference, that they did not take the most expensive hotels and that they saw them going there, 2 or 3 leaders in one car. Europeans are doing it. That's a good thing. I won't mind when the period comes to share the car with somebody else, because we want to save as much as we can so that money can be used to take the needs, to cater for the needs of the poor. We must say no more complaining, no more fighting, time to roll up our sleeves. Work hard. ACDP, work hard. We are going to have elections in a year or so. And those elections, people must see that ACDP is now a different ball game. There are people who are motivated, people who are working hard to make sure that they increase the number of those who can go into communities and serve the people. So those are my closing words. Jesus loves you, we love you, but let's love the people of God. Serve the people of God so that they will thank God that he has given them leaders who love them, who care for them, who have compassion for them, and who serve them. Your parting shot, sir?
Well, President, my parting shot is that as we continue to pray for South Africa and trust that South Africa indeed will see and have a godly government in your lifetime and my lifetime, because South Africa desperately needs a government that honors and respects God, where we are implementing godly principles and values in all sectors of society. But as we are doing that, let's not lose focus of the continent of Africa and continue to pray for godly leadership and for men and women of God to arise up also throughout the continent, so that Africa can indeed be the shining light to the rest of the world.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir, for those parting shots, parting words. And to all those who tuned in tonight, let's hear more from you. I pray that you'll get fresh ideas. What are we going to do to help our country? Now to look up to other people to help. Let us start with ourselves. I want to be among those who want to help. Africa must be saved. South Africa must be saved. We are declining into a steep slope, but we can turn around. By the grace of God, we can turn around and turn the nation around. Dream about Africa that is supplying Europe, and not Africa that is leaders. Go to Europe to beg for milk and bread, to beg for money when we have enough for ourselves in this country. The Lord bless you. Till next week, have a blessed, fruitful week. Fruitful and productive week. And then we'll see you again the coming week. The Lord bless you. Good.